Hello everyone, welcome to the Old Man and the Read. My name is Jerry. Today I'm going to talk about another of the Nobel Prize winning authors I've read, Yasunari Kawabata. Kawabata was born in 1899 and died in 1972. He was a Japanese novelist and short story writer, and he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1968. And he was the first Japanese writer to win the Nobel Prize. But he was an exceptionally good writer. There's an interesting story I heard about him, or read about him once, about how he had been engaged to be married when he was like 20 years old. And then shortly after his engagement, the young woman he was engaged to called the marriage off, and Kawabata never found out why or what the reason was that it had been called off, but he never fell out of love with her for the rest of his life, and evidently he was always curious why that had ended. But that incident, I think, influenced a lot of his stories. And another thing I like about Kawabata's stories is most of them were written in the early 1900s, 1920s, 30s, on up into the 60s. But most of them were earlier. And they really gave a window into traditional Japanese culture for that period, and really added a lot of interest to the stories. So anyway, with that, I'll show you the books I have by Kawabata. The earliest I have is a book titled ISU Dancer, and this is a short story collection, but there's really only one story in the book by Kawabata. But this one was written in 1926, and that's the ISU Dancer. And it's basically about a young man who is attracted to a dancer in a traveling dance group, and he starts following that group around, and until he eventually finds out that the dancer he was attracted to was actually a child just in heavy makeup. The next book is Snow Country. This was published in 1947. And this is a short story about a man named Shimamura. He's a somewhat wealthy, middle-aged man who travels to a mountain town in the snow country. And he meets a geisha named Kamiko there. Now he's a married man with children, but she forms an interest in him, but I really had the impression it was more as a sugar daddy than anything else. The next book is Thousand Cranes, written in 1952. And this is about a young man following the death of his parents. He meets his father's mistress and starts having an affair with her. Now, she's much older than him, and she eventually commits suicide. And then following that, the story just follows his really strange relationship that he had with her daughter. The next book is The Sound of the Mountain, written in 1954. And this follows Agato Shingo. He's a 62-year-old man, and he has both his son and daughter move back in with him. The daughter's divorced, and the son is having financial problems, but he's also having marital problems, and it's because he has a mistress on the side who he seems to spend most of his time with. But Shingo's daughter-in-law is the one that he gets along best with. She serves him tea and his meals in the traditional Japanese style, and the two of them seem to get along extremely well. The next book is The Master of Go, written in 1954. And this is the story of a 6-month-long contest of a game called Go. And now, this is a game I have absolutely no understanding of, but it follows an ailing elderly master. He's in a competition, and it's his final game, and he's in competition with a young challenger. The next book is The Lake, published in 1954, and this follows a man named Genpei. He's a former teacher, but he has an obsession with women, but just a real complete inability to relate to them. He has a habit of following women, much of it like a stalker almost. And if he happens to talk to a woman, he just starts saying some very inappropriate things. But anyway, the story is about him. He's following a woman who panics when she sees him, and she throws her purse at him. When he gets the purse, he sees that it contains a large amount of money, and he keeps the money. And the story then starts following that woman who threw the purse for a while, and it's really mostly about her just really strange behavior after losing all of the money. And then the story goes back to Genpei, and about his inability to relate with women. The next book I have is First Snow in Fuji, published in 1958. And this is a collection of short stories and a play. The stories range from wife swapping and sexual affairs, but I thought the best story in it is about an actor who becomes a famous actress in order to avoid the draft. The next book is House of Sleeping Beauties. This is a collection of 3 short stories by Kawabata. And the title story, House of Sleeping Beauties, and this follows a 67-year-old man who starts visiting a house that offers young naked women to sleep with for older men. Now, the women are extremely highly sedated and are unable to be awoken, and this men spend the night with them. Another story is titled One Arm, and this is about a woman who's given a man her right arm for him to take home. And then the third story is Of Birds and Beasts, and this is about a man who collects birds and dogs and has several of them die on him. And the last book I have is Palm of the Hand Stories. This one was published in 1971. And it's a huge collection of just really very short stories. Some of them aren't much more than a couple of paragraphs, and I think the longest of them isn't more than a couple of pages. The story quality ranges from just excellent to rather mundane, but it covers a whole variety of subject matter, and but most of them seem to deal with relationships of some sort and sexual attractions and sexual behaviors. Some are family interactions, and some are even cultural, about cultural stigma. But most of the stories were written in the 1920s, and there's a few that go up into the 1940s and 60s. But those smaller, earlier stories I really enjoyed because they were really a window into the Japanese culture of the 1920s. However, probably the best story in the book was titled 50 Sen Pieces, and this one was written in 1946, and I thought it was so good because it was a brief but really powerful reference to the war. And those are the books I've read by Yasunari Kawabata. Just some really excellent books, excellent stories. So I want to thank you for watching the video, and hopefully I'll see you on another. Thanks.